was you going to ask me? What's your interest?
Read it then.
Uriah, King Royal. I excused myself from her presence and went into the back room where Uriah was preparing the large sound system. He was arching backwards, fingers nuzzling in his knotted beard, while his hand supported his elbow in a contemplative stance. What's wrong, I asked. We don't know how to get this thing here for work, you know. But I thought it was your sound system. But this thing here have too much button on it. He straightened up and touched something. A loud buzzing noise belched from within the large frame. Ha, it a come. He lifted the arm off the turntable and set it on the record, but there was no sound. He resumed his Fulmer stance, and then suddenly he pulled off his tam as if to free his dreadlocks would provide the answer. Gi I and I wisdom, Oja. He pressed another button. The equipment roused, and then, as if pandering to its owner's touch, he purred silently. Selassie I. Uriah smiled, raising his hands above his head as if to acknowledge his royal majesty. It made a change seeing someone with nice white teeth, and I dare not question their authenticity. A loud boom suspended my admiration. The music had started. Uriah felt secure enough now to leave the record playing unsupervised. A lavish billow of smoke clouded the room, violating my nostrils in the process, giving off a distinct scent. The wave of smoke danced around the room, and Uriah with it. Gyrating his hips and synchronizing his movements with the melody, he tossed his head from side to side, quaking his long locks until they wrapped around his face. The image captured was like that of a print you might see in an art gallery. The record simmered to a halt, and he put on another one, turning up the volume simultaneously. Disconcerted, I asked him if Miss Weeder didn't mind the loud music and the repugnant smell of tobacco in her house. Nah, man, Miss Weeder cool. A my little apartment this, you know. A 2-room me have. I examined the apartment, a garage, which had been converted into a 2-bedroom apartment by erecting a wall, cutting out a window, and putting down a piece of carpet, transforming this contrivance into his empire. Distinguished prints of Bob Marley and a brass-framed photograph of Haile Selassie gave his empire perspective. Rotating his head to the rhythm, I watched his tapered frame buck symmetrically. The haze was now very dense, causing it to affect my discernment. I too swayed with the music. And my sound system this, you know. We call it King Royal. It big out here, he said, confidently adjusting the bass line. Here I am, Miss Weeder hollered. It was always Uriah and not Uriah when she was angry. Turn down the music! Uriah was preoccupied. He didn't hear her. I shook him, and he looked at me with reddened eyes through his wire-rimmed prescription spectacles and smiled. Miss Weeder's getting upset. She said you should turn down the music. Miss Weeder easy, man. She easy like a Sunday morning. Anyway, after the music no loud, he said in a tone of abstemiousness. He placed a protective arm around the sound system. Don't worry, man, she cool like this sweet thing, yeah, he continued in response to my fretful expression. Mr. Uriah, turn down the music or turn it off, she yelled. She definitely didn't sound cool to me. I left his domain and went back into the kitchen. I didn't want her to think I was conspiring with him. Me can't turn the bang around. It'll give me high blood pressure, she groaned. Uriah obviously didn't realize that she was affected by the loud music. That boy give me headache. All I know if I do is stink up my house with him tobacco and make noise. Him don't even lift a finger to help me in the house. And him know that my leg that will give me trouble. Me need him to help me. I felt like saying to her, why don't you ask him to help you then? I was convinced that had she asked him directly to help her, he would. I was sure that had he realised the smoke, the loud music, and the burdensome presence of required siblings was adversely affecting Miss Weeder's health, he would have done something about it. Uriah was not calculating. He had known Miss Weeder for years, and I'm sure he cared about her. So, okay, do you have any questions?
Yeah. Did you feel that there was something missing in you for the reason for you going on this expedition, this search for an identity? Did you feel that you didn't belong anywhere, which is why you were looking for something else, or a basis?
I think I was looking to belong somewhere. I wasn't sure whether it was Jamaica, but I like the Jamaican spirit, and I like the fearlessness, and I like the music, and I guess I wanted to belong to that aspect of it. But I wasn't really prepared. I couldn't cut one part of it and take what I wanted from it. So what happened was I found that aspect of it wasn't important. And what bothered me was the actual behaviour of the people, and the fact that I was kept waiting, and the fact that, you know, I realised at the end of it is that maybe I didn't really want to be classified as a Jamaican per se, because it wasn't all conclusive. I had to just take, there was only little bits of Jamaica that I liked. I didn't want the whole package.
So overall, you didn't get out of it what you hoped you would.
No, I didn't. I thought I'd get a feeling of belonging. I thought that I was one of them. And I didn't get that when I went there. I just felt I felt kind of alienated, actually.
But you, I mean, that's what came across in your book, that it was more your acceptance of them that was the problem. But you could have done. You could have said, yes, this is where I belong. I'm happy to come back and live here and be part of these people, because that's where. When you're going back, you're always going to be a foreigner, aren't you? The difference in accent that you've got and so forth. So,
I think that I don't think I do belong, though. I don't think I wanted to belong. I thought I did. But when I went to Jamaica, I love the country. I love the food. I like the music. I even like the people on a very superficial level, not on a profound level. But I like interacting with them. I find them a very exciting race. But I found my Britishness too overwhelming. And I didn't seem to be able to cut off, well, I call it Britishness. Maybe it isn't Britishness. Maybe it's just me being, you know, overly critical, overly analytical. Maybe I just felt as an individual that, you know, it just didn't fill my expectations, because it didn't. I just thought, well, when you go as a tourist and you pay your money and you're in a hotel, I thought that meant that you were treated a bit special. But I didn't feel as I was treated special. I felt as I was treated second rate. And I don't know if it just happened to be the hotel I was in, or that manicure place I just happened to go in. But I found that, you know, if you're a black tourist, you don't get the same treatment as if you're a white tourist. So I think when you're a black tourist, you're not really, they still won't call you a Jamaican. You're still kind of a foreigner, but you're kind of in limbo, because you're not a tourist because you're black, and then you're not one of them. Well, it's a bit confusing.
But is there? Do you feel that you don't belong here either? So you were looking for somewhere where you could belong.
I feel as though I feel that I more belong here only because I know the ropes and I feel comfortable and I'm born here. But then when you get these classifications of ethnic minority, African, Caribbean, and you just can't be British, and when you sign your little forms and your classification things, you have to be something else. Then it kind of makes you think, well, you know, where do I belong then? Because I can't just be British or English, because there's all these other prefixes. It's either where you're Black British, or you're an Afro-Caribbean, or you're Caribbean Jamaican, or you're British Jamaican, or so you're not just British. So that's what I think. Even though I feel British, I think that's what kind of makes it makes you feel as though you don't really.
So it's the classifications that we're putting on in our efforts to be politically correct, if you like. We are almost alienating people, or making them feel alienated because they don't fit into any particular category.
Right.
And people like to fit into a category. Or do they? Does it matter? I'm never sure whether it. It's something that matters to some people and not to others, or perhaps it doesn't to others because.
I think it matters to the people who are monitoring, but I don't think it matters to the individuals themselves, because I guess people. I mean, if you've got this equality, you know, racial equality and equality, equal opportunities. So in certain systems, it does matter, you know, that you can record and have an element of fairness. But to the individual, it does make you feel as though, why am I being classified? Even though you know the reason behind it, or the alleged reason behind it, because in your mind you're still wondering if that's the real reason behind it. You know, you're not quite convinced that, you know, ticking all these boxes has any real relevance or substance. So I think that does alienate people. I mean, you could just be a woman, or you could just be a British woman, and you don't have to worry about all those other little boxes.
Yeah.
The thing that struck me is it would seem to be a fairly short visit, as almost like a tourist's visit that you've made. Do you think you would have stood a better chance to sort of feel more part of Jamaica if you'd stayed longer, like 6 months or a year?
I think somebody said that to me, if I'd stayed longer. I mean, it's too short to make a value judgment. And maybe if I'd stayed longer, there would have been some balance. You know, I think maybe some of where I felt as I wasn't treated properly, it might have been.
I think you would have perhaps appreciated more of the Jamaican values, and gradually, because you'd left behind the sort of British values, I think they might have not seemed so important to you. The thing that strikes me about reading it is that, like, the quality of service and things like that seemed important, and yet you're saying that you liked the music there and some of the people and other things there. If you'd been longer, perhaps those would have become more important to you.
Yeah. The shame is that I only had 2 weeks holiday. So. But I think you're absolutely
right. The
right.
other thing, you know, because it was a short trip and you were just sort of like almost experimenting, you didn't really seem to go in a sort of committed way to becoming a Jamaican again. You know, I don't know if you adopted their clothing or while you were there, or any of their customs.
You certainly like the breakfast anyway.
I love the
breakfast.
And I don't think, but I don't think they have a certain amount, I don't think they have a certain way of dressing. I mean, I did feel that, I mean, when I went to Kingston, I felt as though I was fitting in. You know, I made sure I wear my baggy trousers.